the GOAT of Formula One, the greatest of all time? Well, that is very much subjective and down to your opinion. Now, of course, there is the greats that you can't ignore. Michael Schumacher, Lewis Hamilton, Ayrton Senna, the big names that you would say. Then maybe you've got the names who were still very successful, but they might not be named loads. You know, Nigel Mansell, Nicky Lauda, Sir Jackie Stewart, Jim Clark, even for Jordan. Me personally, I'm not sure who is the greatest of all time. You have to put them in the list. But as I said at the start there, it's very much subjective. It's your own opinion. So obviously Jordan thinks Jim Clark. Obviously he'll probably go into reasons in this episode. You might think Michael, you might think Ayrton, you might even think Lewis. But there's something that's going to happen very soon, and a record that he's going for, and people are considering this record as the second biggest, or the second biggest milestone to show he is the GOAT. He's on 6, he's chasing 7 in World Championships, he's on 90 at the moment. Michael Schumacher set 91 victories. And all that equates to this weekend in the Russian Grand Prix tomorrow in Sochi, Lewis Hamilton could match that record of 91 and share the accolade with Michael Schumacher. And then the next race in Germany, which actually is the home of Mercedes, he could get 92. Lewis Hamilton is on the verge of becoming the greatest of all time. Now again, it might not be your personal opinion, but he has to be up there. And maybe he is. So we're going to try and convince you why, not convince you, but we're going to talk about why. And we might even convince ourselves, because I'm very much on the fence here. I don't know who is the greatest of all time. I'm getting tantalisingly close to saying Lewis, guys. Very, very, very close. I'm inches away from saying Lewis Hamilton. And yeah, at the end of this episode, I could possibly do that. So Jordan, Lewis Hamilton, of course, you the greatest of all time is already decided for you. Maybe you can say your reasons why you think, of course, you think Jimmy is the greatest of all time for you also, but it's your own opinion. So people might believe Lewis, he definitely has to be up there. So just kick this off. Lewis Hamilton on 90 at the moment. Is he the greatest at the moment? 90 wins and 6 world championships. Is he at the moment the greatest of all time in your opinion?
Well, I'll explain a few things first. Now, yes, of course, in my own opinion, I think Jimmy Clark is probably the best racing driver of all time, or one of the best. It's so hard to determine who actually the GOAT is. Now, the GOAT basically stands for greatest of all time. I think it was first used in some rapper's album back in 2000. I think it might have been. That's when this abbreviation first came about. The term GOAT describing someone as the greatest of all time in their said subject, whether that's sport, music, drama, acting, or whatever you'd like. And it's something that it keeps cropping up every now and then in the F1 community, and something that it's still big topic now, and especially like what Lyle said before, Lewis Hamilton is so close to matching Michael Schumacher's record, and it's incredible that we are actually witnessing this. Like, who would have thought Lewis, not just Lewis, but for anyone to even get close to Schumacher's records? It's absolutely mental, and just proves how good Mercedes are, and not just Mercedes for that matter, Lewis Hamilton, because behind every good driver is a good team. Schumacher had it with Ferrari, Lewis Hamilton has got it with Mercedes. Now, do I believe Lewis Hamilton is the greatest of all time because of that? No. Now, the reason why I say this is because there is no GOAT. That's what I'm going to say. I'll kick this off. There is no GOAT because it's so, with the sport like Formula One, it's so difficult to judge how good a said driver would be in another person's generation of racing. So you take, for example, I'll take Jim Clark, for example. Undoubtedly the best driver in the 60s. Hands down the best driver in the 60s. Would he have been the best driver in the 70s? The best driver in the 80s? I don't know, because the cars and the regulations and the teamwork was so different. You know, it changed. At the time the sport was changing so quick that some of the good drivers all of a sudden were so far behind because they couldn't understand this new technology, these new aerodynamics. And because of that, it did hinder them, and they could have been really good drivers. And they weren't able to show off their talent. So would a driver like Jimmy be able to adapt to ground effect, to rear wings, to other kinds of aero technology that was coming out of the cars? I don't know. I really don't know, because we never got to see it. Unless the only way you could generally determine who actually is the GOAT, if Formula One every single year, every single driver had the same exact car, same strategy, same whatever, the exact same, as similar as to what you could possibly get it to be, as humanly possible. then you could determine, okay, this guy, he's won more races, he's won more championships in the same car as every other driver that's ever existed in Formula One. He is the GOAT. But there is, I mean, if you're going off stats, if you want to go off on paper alone, then Schumacher is currently still the best driver of all time because he's won more championships than anybody else. He's won more races than anybody else. But it's not just down to winning races. It's not just down to winning championships. Because you could say, right, okay, Fernando Alonso is one of the best drivers of all time. But he's got 2 world championships. You know, and other drivers you might consider not to be as great. Like, for example, people say to me, well, not say to me, but I say it on Twitter, like, oh, Alan Prost, yeah, you know, he was a bit of a sly sod. He had 4 world championships. Does that make him better than Alonso? Some people, you know, seem yes. Some people seem to say no. And I would also go on to say that maybe people's momentum in terms of like why would they say Hamilton is the GOAT or Schumacher's the GOAT or Senna's the GOAT is either if you're interested in that particular person. So, like for example, with me, Jim Clark, I became really fascinated by Jim Clark. I want to know more about him. I understand, you know, why he drove the way he did, the stories people were telling about him, and I fell in love with the story of Jim Clark, and I was like, wow, this guy was truly incredible. But does that mean he's better than Fangio? Because I don't really pay that much attention to Fangio, you know. But does that mean, in my opinion, is Jim Clark better than Fangio? Yeah. Probably not. You know, but is Fangio better than some other drivers? I really don't know. Jackie Stewart even said, in his opinion, the best F1 driver of all time or the best racing driver of all time is Fangio. But that's his opinion. And like I said, would Fangio cut it in today's Formula One? Again, we're never going to know. It's so hard to determine who it really is. You can go off generations. You can go off decades. It's probably easier to pick who is the best driver of the 50s. You know, Fangio. 60s, Jim Clark. 70s, probably Niki Lauda. I would probably say Niki Lauda. And it's very easy to do that. But in terms of who is the best of all time, I really don't know. But moving on back onto Lewis Hamilton. Certainly, he's going to beat the championships and he's going to beat the win record. He is going to do that. Well, he's certainly going to match the championship record. Beating it is another story. 100%, yes, he's going to do that. He should be in that bracket of the best drivers of all time. He just has to be. But for some reason, people don't seem to see that. And people like say, oh, he isn't the best driver of all time. Schumacher is. Okay then, but would people still agree with that if Hamilton overtakes Schumacher's records? Would people then go, okay, Hamilton is the best driver of all time because he has more wins than anybody else, he has more podiums than anybody else, more pole positions than anybody else, more anything than anybody else. But then, if you grew up watching Schumacher, you're going to say Schumacher is the best driver of all time. You might even say them two. You might say Vettel's the best driver of all time. I really do. It's whatever. It's an opinion. That's what it's come to now. It's an opinion now. It's not an official. Hamilton's the best of all time. No arguing about it. That is it. It's official. F1 have made their claim. No one gets a say in this. That's pretty much it. It's not like that. It's a debate. It opens up different books. It opens up different pages to different arguments. And for me, Hamilton, he is in that bracket of the best drivers of all time. I mean, we are British. We're not biased against Lewis Hamilton. You can't argue with what he has done in recent Formula One. It's mind-boggling. It's absolutely mind-boggling. And yes, all right, for me, and people say, oh yeah, well, Hamilton's had the best car, but the best drivers deserve the best car. I've seen this brilliant quote from somebody. Let's see if I can try to remember this on the spot. It's about Lionel Messi, who is arguably one of the best footballers of all time. But you've got that argument of who is better, Ronaldo or Messi. Some people say Messi, some people say Ronaldo. It's whatever you think. I think stat-wise, I think Messi edges it a bit, but that means nothing to some people. Let's see if I can remember this. It said, Messi isn't at Barcelona because he's the best. No, hang on a minute, I've got that wrong. Sorry, Messi isn't at Barcelona. No, I can't remember it, but it's something really good. If I remember it during the episode, I will say it because it makes total sense. And if you know what I'm referring to, then please comment below. But I will try and get back to it. Yeah. But you know what I mean? It's just basically like, just because Hamilton has the best car doesn't mean to say, all right, he's lucky then. Because he's still got to drive the damn thing. He's still got to change the gears, brake, accelerate. You know, like for example, you look at that lap at Singapore 2018. Like, how good was that qualifying lap? Under so much pressure and such a tough circuit, very very hot in that car. It's like Monaco. Like Monaco was straight in a way. It's so tight, so narrow, so easy to make a mistake. He was like 1 second faster than his nearest rival. It's like, that for me proves Lewis Hamilton is a great driver and deserves to be one of the greats. But some people don't agree with that, and for whatever reason, it just eludes the people, which is your opinion. I totally understand that, and we're not going to judge here. And again, in the comment section, be nice to one another, because this will spark up a couple of debates between one another, well, whether that's with us or whether that's with amongst you yourselves. But I wouldn't say Hamilton is the GOAT, because there is no GOAT, but you have to put him in that bracket of the best drivers of all time. Which, again, Lyle, some people wouldn't even put Lewis Hamilton in that bracket. Now, just because putting himself in that top bracket as a racing driver, you know, like from what he's done, I don't think it's all down to that. I think it's off-track actions as well, what he does. Like, I think this week he was announced as one of the top 100 most influential people in the world. Which is like, for Formula 1, that's a big honour. Like, what? You know what I mean? Like, Formula 1 doesn't get like that kind of recognition. Like, look what Lewis Hamilton's doing. Look what the message he's sending out with Black Lives Matter. The movement the message he's trying to get across. And not only that, his fashion brand. Like, he's a genuine celebrity like, everyone knows who he is. And he's doing, like, he's not being in trouble every single week. He's a perfect role model, isn't he, Lyle? And do you think that, yeah, like, Lewis Hamilton is, I would say, not only a good race driver, but he's a really good role model to the younger generation of not just Formula 1 fans, but everyone in the world. And do you think that is a factor, or that should be a factor, not just a driving style, but a factor as to why you should consider Hamilton as, let's say, the greatest of all time?
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with what you were saying there. Yeah, Lewis is really a good role model. Now, you know, he has, you know, stirred up controversy over the years about things like how his interview is, you know, he's not full of conversation and things like that, you know, just how he dresses and what he says and what he does and stuff. But he doesn't get into trouble, as Jordan said, which, you know, again, we're not going to mention names here, but, you know, when you see a sports person who does things like that, you know, who is in trouble with the police and things like that, I mean, it happens, unfortunately, it happens a lot more than we expect, even just these little things, but to see your favourite sportsman in the headlines, and there's one at the moment, and you probably know who it is, who's in the papers, and you think, you know, he's got an army of people, millions of people following him, the nation of where he's from, and, you know, to see that, it's not great. And Lewis never gets into trouble. You know, yes, he might dress weird.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt Lyle there, but you make a really good point about, like, yeah, like Lewis Hamilton, he dresses, but like the way he dresses, like, all right, yeah, it's not something like a hoodie or like a tracksuit or whatever. You know, it's not like an average style. But for some people, that it annoys them. Why? What's he done? What's he done there?
Yeah. But it just, I mean, do you know what? Right? People just like to hate. And again, it just leads me on to the next thing about the popularity. Sometimes I feel like the greatest of all time has always got to be popularity. So again, you were saying there, Jordan, about Messi or Ronaldo. That's the point, you know, that's what we're living in football at the moment. You know, those two players don't play in the Premier League. You know, Ronaldo did, you know, a decade ago. Messi's never played here. And, you know, the debate is between Messi or Ronaldo. I mean, of course, I don't believe any of these are, but, you know, you've got people like Neymar, Kylian Mbappe. You've got some great players over here in this country that you could even chuck into the mix. But it's only between those two players that we look at. It's the same in the other you know, other aspects as well, like the best movie star, Will Smith and Tom Hanks. They're the names I always see cropping up, but you've got so many others as well that can be put into the mix. Drew Brees and Tom Brady in NFL, they're the only two that can be put in the mix at the moment. That's completely not true. It's kind of down to a popularity thing at the end of the day. And, you know, yes, there's other people that you can like. For example, with me personally, my favourite player at Newcastle was Shea Given. And we had a prime Alan Shearer right there. But I didn't pay any attention to Alan Shearer. It was all Shea Given. Because I met him once, and he played as a goalkeeper, and I just found him to be a really, really enjoyable player. He played 11 years, very, very good for us as well, had the results, but you had a prime Alan Shearer, who I didn't look at because I wanted to be an Alan Shearer fan. Sorry, a Shea Given fan. So it's like that. It's down to your personal choice and popularity. Also as well, just what you said as well, Jordan, about the what he does for Formula One. Ayrton Senna. One of the reasons why people probably see him as the greatest of all time, and yes, again, like we've just said there, Alain Prost, his main rival, and again, even if you didn't know too much about that era, the documentary Senna, portrays it very, very well. The rivalry between Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost, but Alain Prost was more successful than Ayrton Senna on paper, had 4 world championships in Formula One longer. To be honest, he probably was a better Formula One driver than Ayrton Senna. But what Alain didn't have, and again, very good guy. He's still around Formula One. He's in the Renault. Yeah. He's in the Renault team. He helped all their younger drivers. He works alongside Daniel Ricciardo right now. Actually, he was quite influential in getting him into the team. He worked alongside the late Antoine Hubert as well when he was going through the ranks at Renault as a test driver, and in Formula 3, and obviously in Formula 2 has worked with Ardennes. So he's a good, he's good to see in the paddock right now. Great guy to have. And one of the greats, has to be. But I think the reason why people say Ayrton Senna is better is because of his work that he did outside of Formula One. Again, an amazing role model. Nothing went wrong. He had a great mindset. He boosted Formula One in the ratings. Again, people loved the rivalry between those two drivers. And in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, he was loved because of the work that he did around the city. He helped the poverty, and he helped, basically just any of the problems. He was a great ambassador for the city of Sao Paulo. And again, if you watch the documentary and you see at the end his funeral, it'll show how much that affected those people and how much people loved Ayrton Senna. He wasn't just a driver. He was someone who, they looked up to. And even though it was just normal society, because of course there'll be people in Sao Paulo that might not like Formula One, he was an amazing ambassador for Formula One. And yes, we had people like Emerson Fittipaldi, who were of course Brazilian Formula One drivers beforehand, but I do feel like Formula One in Brazil, maybe it had the stamp on it, kind of like the Daniel Ricciardo, he's put the letter in, the postmark or whatever, but Ayrton Senna came along and stamped it. No, he licked the stamp and then sent it, because and that's how influential he was. Again, Niki Lauda in Austria. Formula One was very much, I wouldn't even say it was well known before then. You had Jochen Rindt. He was the only Austrian Formula One world champion before Niki Lauda. I think we were racing in Austria before Niki. That was at the Österreich ring, of course now the Red Bull ring. But again, Niki Lauda, I don't want to say the only Austrian driver, because of course we've had Austrian drivers before. As I said, Jochen Rindt. We have Austrian drivers before. Of course, we have one of the most successful Formula One teams, Red Bull Racing, from Austria. But again, Formula One in Austria, was that brought about because of Niki Lauda? Did we see Niki as a game changer? Okay, yes, fair enough. Things that taken for things like popularity through headlines and stuff. So yes, was it after his crash? Was it because of he was actually the main reason why the 1976 Japanese Grand Prix was the first ever public internationally broadcast Formula One event ever? He was the reason, him and James Hunt, but mainly because of Niki Lauda. I read, and obviously it's shown in the film, but I read about it that, James Hunt, yes, he was important, but all of the eyes of the whole world were on Niki Lauda, the man who had one ear, the man who was bald and had a big, loads of red, he was burnt alive, came back, and he was battling for the World Championship. All the eyes were on him. So again, when you look at things like that, the person who revolutionised your sport, is that what makes you the GOAT over other people? And again, Max Verstappen, just one last thing as well. Dutch Formula One in the Netherlands is loved. We don't really know why, because again, in terms of Formula One drivers from Holland, we don't have many. I think we had Jos Verstappen. I don't know if there was anyone before him. Jos Verstappen was the most successful, but again, didn't amount to loads. He was teammates with Michael Schumacher at Benetton, loved for that. Didn't achieve much, probably well known for his fire in 1994, but still he was adored, brought fans out to Zandvoort. And now we're watching Max Verstappen, a future world champion. But even when Max drives one lap, he's loved for what he does because of the love that the Netherlands has and the fact that he is driving in their car. And these people all kind of go to be an ambassador for the sport. And that's, again, that's why I think it's really boosted up from what Lewis is doing, because he's not just a driver. He is really, boosting the UK's love for Formula One. I mean, of course, we already love Formula One. Of course, it was our sport. If anything, I think Formula One, and again, this is something else, leave in the comment section below, I think Formula One is very much British. We have loads of British drivers. A few years ago, I think it was 2015, 2016, we had 2 or 3. I think maybe at one point we had 1 or maybe even 0 in the past. But all the teams are from here. It's a British thing. Silverstone is loved. It's been on the calendar since the very start. It's a British sport. Anyways, away from that. Yes, so I think Lewis is the face of Formula One, the figure. And of course, I completely agree with you, John. I think he is the person who you think of first. And, yes, I think Michael did that. We don't know for 2 reasons. One, because we weren't real big Michael Schumacher fans. I mean, we were incredibly young. We weren't even alive when he won his first 2 championships. And obviously we're not German as well, so we don't know his effect. But with Lewis, he brought so many fans out to do that. All the fans at Silverstone come to watch Lewis Hamilton. Even at the McLaren days, McLaren 2007, people would have come out to watch Lewis Hamilton, knowing that, yes, he's a good driver. Some of the people like us, will flick through the programs and going, he's another British world champion. Sorry, scrap that, he's not a world champion yet. He's a British driver. Some people will know him. Some people, of course, will be McLaren fans because McLaren are a British team. But Lewis still brought fans out. 2008, an absolutely insanely amazing race in the wet. Lewis Hamilton wins, obviously at home. Incredible for him. A very long time since a British, I think it was Nigel Mansell over a decade ago from that moment, correct me if I'm wrong, who won the British Grand Prix at that point. He brought out so many fans. And even now, of course, yes, he's dominating that Mercedes. But even years like 2009, 2010, 11, 13, I guess you want to say, when Lewis wasn't the best driver on the grid. Of course, he was getting beaten in championships and races, and even 2009, 2010, that terrible McLaren, he brought fans out to Silverstone. It's the effect that he has, and that's why I think he's more than a Formula One driver. This has gone very much off track, hasn't it, Jordan? Actually, we're not talking about the 90 anymore. We're not talking about the 90 anymore. We're not talking about the 6 going for 7. It's crazy, isn't it? So yes. From what you've just said there, from the second part of this question, the off track, I think Lewis could be the greatest of all time. Definitely up there, which factually he definitely is. But in your mind, as a GOAT, I could see it happening. And I'm 98% Lewis Hamilton is the greatest of all time for the influence that he has on our sport. And of course, what is happening, as Jordan mentioned there, what's happening in the news, he's definitely a great figure. And of course, the 100 influential people in Formula One, because we saw Lewis as just a normal kid. The man who came in 2007, wasn't going to amount, he's going to amount to some things, but he had the reigning world champion, double world champion, Fernando Alonso alongside him. He wasn't going to get much. 2008, yes, he's got a championship, yes, it was great. And then, honestly, it just started to build up momentum. I told you in the episode about a fortnight ago, I watched the 2014 British Grand Prix. He had 20-odd wins at that point. Now he's on 90. It's absolutely insane. He's winning every single year. That's another point as well. That makes me think he is definitely incredible. But he is the statement of Formula One in Great Britain. John, do you agree with that? Of course, we've had so many world champions. We had Jenson Button the year after him. There was so many before him. Of course, Sir Jackie Stewart, Jim Clark, Nigel Mansell. But if you had to say who is the #1 ambassador for Formula One in the UK, or British Formula One, would you agree and say that it is Lewis Hamilton? Because he is the man who is adored in Formula One right now for his work on track and off track, both things that you've just mentioned. So yeah, in your opinion, do you think Lewis Hamilton is the #1 ambassador for our country in really?
I would say he's really inspirational to many British fan. He's always around and about doing something, whether that's with charity work or fashion work or even sport work, and like I said, trying to get a message across, like the Black Lives Matter movement. And he said before that he won't stay silent. He'll keep on doing what he's doing. And hey, Lewis, do whatever it is you want to do, my friend. Not that you'll be watching this and going, "Cheers, Jordan, I'll do exactly that." But go on.
Just one thing there, Jordan. It doesn't have to be about what's happening right now. But again, Lewis is one of those people who he kind of cements what a lot of people are saying. I'm not saying
Yeah.
people don't say, you don't have to say things in what's the media, but Lewis does kind of agree to that thing of, if you've got a voice, you speak it. And of course that can be at the moment. So for example, what he did in Magello after the shirt that he spoke so powerfully, of course, what's happening in the world. Or it can be about the car, or it can be about other issues that have been in Formula One. Lewis is definitely someone who is not afraid to speak up. And again, that's just another incredible thing that he's doing. We're definitely talking off track, aren't we? I think that it just shows, Jordan, that this question, there's so much more, isn't there, than just the on track accolades.
Yeah.
And again, I'm kind of getting blown about myself, talking about it. I'm like, if anything, being the GOAT is only a very small part of on track action. And so much of it actually goes into, what we're talking
absolutely
about right
as
now,
well. And social media has that really big effect where Lewis can express and share his message even further. And probably even back in the days, I mean, when Lewis Hamilton first came into Formula One, he was hit by racial abuse from the word go, and he had to overcome that. And because of his own experiences, of course, he's now sharing, being an influence to various other people as well. But just because he's from the UK and he's the face of Formula One over here in Britain, not every single British person actually likes Lewis Hamilton for whatever reason. You could be a Schumacher fan where you grew up watching Schumacher. You could be a Jenson Button fan, for example. You might not even be a fan of anybody at all. You might go, nah, Lewis Hamilton, people say he's a dick, he's this, he's that, he's whatever. And I'm going, right, but that's your opinion, and I respect that, but I really want to know, I see comments like, oh, Lewis Hamilton is a dick. Okay, have you met the guy in person? No, I don't think you have. Why do you not like him for? You don't have to like him for...
You've never met us in the flesh, but you don't know that weird.
Yeah,
actually,
you do.
you know what? You do. I'll give you that. You do.
Exactly that, but...
I'll let you off.
But no, and for some reason, it's not enough for people to warm to Lewis Hamilton. And like I said before, that's entirely up to you, and that's what you... If you don't want to like Lewis Hamilton, don't like Lewis Hamilton. We're not here to say, oh, you must like Lewis because you're British. That isn't the case whatsoever. But and I would say as well, a lot of the younger generation, maybe not the younger generation now, but certainly the generation that we went through as well, Lyle, how we got into Formula One. Lewis Hamilton could, let's say, be a big inspiration for that and bringing in a lot of fans for Formula One because, Formula One started off in Britain in 1950. We need a British driver over here in the UK to keep us all watching. Because if there is no British driver, will there be British fans?
Yeah.
Maybe. I think there will be some who might, let's say, warm to a Charles Leclerc, a Max Verstappen, for example, or even somebody else, a Daniel Ricciardo, for example. But maybe with the newer generation, or even with the older generation going, nah, I'm not bothered anymore, I'm just going to turn it off, there's no point, there's no British drivers, in Lewis' interest. So Lewis Hamilton has been heavily inspirational for this generation of F1 fans. And another driver who is doing bits as well for the next generation of fans, Lando Norris, who I've had a really good encounter with his fan base. I think he's getting a different kind of fan base, I would say. Some good, some bad. I mean, I don't think I said this to Lyle before we recorded. Maybe some of his fans aren't even F1 fans, for example. But we'll not get into that. But you know what I mean? Like Lewis Hamilton, because he was always on adverts, he was always on YouTube, he was always on the papers, let's say, on TV talk shows. It was oh wow, Lewis Hamilton, what does he do? And you would look into what he did, and you'd be impressed with what he did. And you would probably watch it because of Lewis Hamilton, or it could have been for somebody else for that matter. And the next generation will be looking at the likes of George Russell, who streams on occasions during the lockdown. Lando Norris, who streams on a regular occurrence. He's so down with the kids that the kids are looking up to him, and now they'll be following him to Formula One. He's literally like the Pied Piper. He's got his flute. Everyone's following him. Let's obviously the Pied Piper is a bit of a vicious story, but it won't be like that. But Norris is guiding all the younger generation of fans to Formula One, and that is a good thing. And that's where F1 should be. The next generation of fans should be looking at is the online platform, because
the show in Formula One isn't as serious, is it, Jordan? So obviously we know that moment of when Michael Schumacher's confronting David Coulthard. for me, sometimes that's like that's the image, that's the main headline for Michael Schumacher for me. I don't mean in any bad way. I mean I feel like someone who would just do his driving on the track, no talking,
Exactly.
do a Niki Lauda kind of thing. Sebastian Vettel, two Germans very much following each other, and just drive, and that's it. The seriousness of it, and Lewis Hamilton as well, very very serious. Lando and people like that, they're taking the serious out of it. But that's the last thing I'm going to say on that, because I feel like we are kind of going back into that said video. You all know which one I'm talking about. But yeah, it's becoming less serious. So is Lewis Hamilton also the last of the serious drivers? Because obviously now we're not getting serious. I don't know if you've just seen there on all their various Instagrams. They've just done a Zoom call. Charles Leclerc's got a funny name, and they've done loads of different filters on each other. Like one's where Charles got a big nose, and one's where Alex is dressed up as the Undertaker, and it's all one big goof. So is Lewis Hamilton the last of the serious? Just another question as well for you then, John. Is Lewis the last of the serious drivers for Formula 1?
I think Lewis is like the last kind of like generation of. He's the last breed of like kind of like a serious kind of very straight faced in interviews, has a little laugh every now and then. But like this new generation of F1 drivers is something we've never seen before. And actually, yes, I think we have seen it, just not on this kind of level. Because this group of drivers always reminds me of the group that they had in the 60s with Graham Hill, Jim Clark, Jackie Stewart, with their wives and their friends. They would always go on holidays together. They would always have a joke and laugh in the paddock during the races as well. And this is very similar to what it's like now and coming up. Compared to what it is, it's just that in its right generational kind of form, over Zoom and over social media, and obviously back then social media wasn't even a thing. Mobile phones weren't even a thing back in them days. You know what I mean? So, but it is similar to. And do you know what? There's probably even fans back then who didn't like that. The camaraderie of those three and those four, or even five, just going, oh, motorsport should be a serious sport and da-da-da. Not even British fans, maybe the Italian fans who like things straight and serious and strict, going, oh no, we should, you will not talk to each other, you will not do this, you will not do that, you will just concentrate on the car, and that is it. You don't talk to anyone else from the other team. And, the next generation of drivers are being so influential on the younger generation, and even for us, like older fans, we all love it as well, because they're being like kind of childish and stuff like that, and we all like to release our inner child at some point. We always go, oh no, I'm serious, I'm mature. Then something happens where like you watch a funny video or you see something funny, like with the Zoom call with having the funny face and stuff like that, and you do laugh. You go, well, that is actually pretty funny. You do. Some people don't do that. But
go on then. What's your inner child?
A lot of things. I'm very immature at times. I don't know, like farts is a one. Like little things like that. I'll just go, like, you know what I mean? Like something really so silly, but I just go, it's just funny. It really is. Or putting a cucumber behind a cat on the floor and watching it run away. It's so funny. That is the best thing ever. Anyways.
All right.
Or drawing a big willy on the board. Yeah. Anyways. In our books, in our books.
In our planners.
You know who you are. Incredible. Anyways, but moving back to your, but you know what I mean? How immature it can be. But yeah, actually, I think we should. Yeah, the next generation of F1 drivers are being like so influential on fans, and they'll be considered as well as a really big part as to why they got into Formula 1. And if they do reach some really good milestones, like 4, 5, even 6 world championships, like maybe Russell or Norris, or like 60, 70, or even 80 wins, then you could consider them as the best driver of all time. You grew up watching them. I remember when I was watching them on Twitch or whatever. It's whatever you like. But moving on back onto Lewis Hamilton as well. I would say as well, we should definitely give credit to Lewis Hamilton for what he's doing. Like I said, on the track, brilliant driver. Off track, so inspirational to many. I think there's a group of people that nobody's given credit for, that we should give them a lot of credit to, and that's Mercedes. Because without Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton would not have the championships he's got. He wouldn't have the wins he's got. Without, like I said earlier in the video, behind every single driver is an even better team, a great team. And Mercedes, there's no one better in Formula 1 right now than Mercedes. They're proving it. They're dominating the sport. They're giving Hamilton what he wants. Hamilton's not like complaining and moaning or anything like that about whatever, even though he does say that a lot. Because he wants everything to be perfect. He's a perfectionist. And Mercedes are giving him that. If he had stayed at McLaren in hindsight, he would have just still had that one championship. He would have been branded as a failure. No. And despite him winning every single race, at least winning a race in every single season since 2007, in between 2007 and 2012, when he was at McLaren at the time, people were going, okay, Hamilton's good. We know he's a good driver. McLaren aren't giving him a good car to unleash his full potential. Then he jumped to Mercedes, and everyone went, this'll fail. It did anything but fail. Like, look what he's done with the team. And that isn't down to Lewis. That is down to Mercedes as well. And I think we should be giving Mercedes a lot of a lot more credit than what we should be giving Hamilton for as well, don't you think? And should we be considering them, like Mercedes and Hamilton, as a GOAT partnership as well? Like Lyle questioned you as well. But we should be giving Mercedes a lot more, recognition for what they are doing as well. Like, they are giving Hamilton everything to go out and perform. And that's the thing. Like, they're using their time and facilities and their money and their investment to build Hamilton the perfect machinery. Just Hamilton needs to be the best driver he possibly can be to win in that best machinery. Because if you put someone else in Hamilton's car, will they do what Hamilton did? I can name one other driver that could do that, and that's Max Verstappen. Anybody else, I'm going, I really don't know. Charles Leclerc, yeah, all right, maybe not what Hamilton's level, he could do well. Russell, I'm yet to see what Russell can possibly do in a better car. So yeah, I think we should be giving Mercedes.
I still don't think any of them could. I think it was only Lewis, and I think only one person will do that in the future, and that's Lewis for sure. You were saying there about going from McLaren in 2012 to go to Mercedes in 2013. Even though Mercedes were the team in 2013, still using the V8, of course, very less going into the car, of course, no hybrid era, and obviously Red Bull was still on top. But I would still say Lewis had a massive influence on that.
Yeah.
In that team. And I think Lewis has as well. That's the point, Red Bull were a team that were basically ran by Sebastian Vettel. I feel like with Sebastian, he churned it up, right? And I think, yes, of course, he was influential to the team. But then as soon as Sebastian left, it was kind of like it was kind of like Christian Horner was holding up the soggy roof when it was raining. He was unsure what was going to happen. Are we going to have a driver to come and help us, boost the team? Or how were Red Bull going to stay afloat? They went through Fiat, then they went through Ricciardo, and then of course they found Verstappen. But at the end of the day, I still feel like Red Bull have enough turbulence to still stay up. Like Sebastian, he held that team up so high that the team could still ride Sebastian's wave for a good few years, until you're looking at around like 2017, the end of 2017, when Red Bull, I think Max Verstappen retired from half of the races that he did. And that's when Red Bull were losing kind of what I would call the Sebastian Vettel, like the pushing up the roof kind of thing. And then, of course, that's when they had to start rebranding. And then, of course, that's when Max, I would say 2018, that's when Max, of course, proved himself to be, of course, the leader, the Sebastian Vettel 2.0, the holder of the roof at Red Bull. That's who, cemented at the team. And Mercedes, they weren't the big team at that point. Nico Rosberg, Michael Schumacher, okay, they had an okay car, but when Lewis came into the team, he was the one to really hold up that roof. He gave Mercedes everything that he possibly can. And even though we went into 2014 and they got the hybrid era spot on, because of course Red Bull came from an engine company. When the V8 were quite similar to design, of course, Adrian Newey, his work from McLaren definitely helped them. But when it came to the hybrid era, Mercedes' 100 odd years in the automotive industry helped them in Formula One. They ended up working and collaborating alongside their cars, their road cars, and their bases in Germany, and that's what helped them get the best results. But even though Mercedes capitalised on that, I still feel like Lewis was the one to, help the team get there. And again, you were just saying there, Jordan, about all the other drivers, the Max Verstappens and the George Russells and all them people. But that'll never happen again. I think also as well, just one last thing as well on top of the GOAT. We will never see someone get close to Lewis Hamilton again. And the reason why I'm saying that is not because we've got no other drivers in the world who aren't as good as Lewis Hamilton will ever be. I'm not saying Max will never be as good as Lewis. I'm not saying anyone else will be. It's very, 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 very tight The chances of Max being as good as Lewis are very, very slim. At the moment, it can still be done. But the reason why I think that no one will be as good as Lewis in terms of what Lewis has achieved in his career is for that reason. He went to Mercedes when they were nothing, well, not nothing, but he went to Mercedes when they were very, very low. The bar was down here, the roof was actually on the floor, and he was the one who picked up that roof and lifted it above everybody's head, above Ross Brawn's head, above Paddy Lowe's head, above Toto Wolff's head, above Nico Rosberg's head, and showed everyone we are a team to be feared. And what happens next year? He wins a second World Championship, Mercedes win their first Constructors' World Championship, and the saga continues from there. That will never happen again, and that's the reason why I think nobody will ever achieve what Lewis has done. And I do not mean the 90 wins and the 6 World Championships, and whatever he does next week, whatever he has in 3 weeks' time, in 5 weeks' time, and in a year's time, and in 10 years' time. I mean, no one will achieve what he's done with Mercedes. It is an incredible feat, a storybook feat, and something that will never ever be done again. And I really, really stand by that. I think Lewis Hamilton's move to Mercedes was definitely the best, and is definitely something that will never ever be done again, ever. Obviously, let us know in the comment section below what you think about that. I mean, do you think Lewis is the best of all time? And do you think that Mercedes move is the best of all time? Jordan, I think I could, just a final thing on this episode, I think I could chalk this up to his move to Mercedes. He won at McLaren every single year. He won in 2009, in 2010, in 2011 when the car was just meh. And then he won in 2012 when the car was good but reliability let him down. He jumped ship to Mercedes, and as he said, people thought he was going to be a laughing stock. He won in 2013 in Hungary, and he helped the team into what they are right now. If anything, Lewis deserves 2 accolades for himself. A bit like the drivers and the constructors, he deserves a medal for himself and for what he's done at Mercedes. So just quickly, just end off the episode. Do you think that his move is the GOAT status alone? And do you ever think anyone will ever achieve what he's done again in terms of the moving to a team and boosting it so high up again? What do you think?
Yeah. I think his move to Mercedes is, I mean, will it ever happen again? Like, the impact that had happened, like, you know, Hamilton went to Mercedes, who were a midfield team, and, I mean, nobody could have predicted that the sheer dominance that Mercedes would have on Formula One, you know, because we all thought, all right, Ferrari will get back to winning ways. Renault, they're on superb form with their engines. You know, they couldn't build an engine to save their life in the V6s. Even they're struggling, well, maybe not struggling as much, but still not at the front of the grid where they once were. And that's what led to the whole Red Bull split as well. But just how influential it all became, and how just quickly it all unfolded between, like, you know, Rosberg winning what 2 or 3 races in 2013, Hamilton winning 1, and then oh, by the way, you know, in of course Mercedes finished second in the 2013 constructors that year, but there was still they weren't quite there. Red Bull still had the edge, and Ferrari, you know, but Ferrari were always going to be a threat. In McLaren, they did have a back year, but there was always that, okay, new regs, you know, it's anybody's game. Nobody knows where anyone's going to be. And here they are, Mercedes just hit the nail on the head and away with it, and they are still at the top. And that's what makes a good team. Like, they haven't dipped. Like, no one's took a championship from them since 2014. In both drivers and constructors. There's been 3 different world champions in the V6 era. And, sorry, there's been 2 world champions in the V6 era. And I was thinking of race wins. I was thinking of race wins for Mercedes. Sorry, I'm thinking of Bottas as well. No, there's been 2 world champions. Hamilton and Rosberg both have driven for Mercedes, and you're like who's going to stop them? And you look at it, 2022. That's when the next big regulation is going to be. Yeah. Is that going to be the year Mercedes domination stopped? I don't know. I really don't know. And will Ferrari come back? Will Red Bull come back? I don't know. But in terms of like the records being set, what you said there earlier, Lyle, records are there to be broken. Schumacher famously said that. I think eventually, one day, somebody will come along, a team and a driver will come along, maybe beat Hamilton's records one day. It just depends on what the records are. Because Hamilton could have a really good season this season and go from 94 wins, let's say he ends the season on 94 wins, and then that could be it. Mercedes could have a really bad year in 21, and then that's it. The dominance is over. You know what I mean? Someone else has took over, and okay, the bar's set at 94. It just depends what the bar is going to be set at. Is it going to be is it going to be over 100 wins from the form this season, and then the lack of development next season? I'm saying over 100 poles and over 100 wins. It's going to be so difficult, and people will look at that and go, "That'll never be beaten." But then everyone said that about Schumacher. I mean, at the time when Schumacher set his 91st victory, China 06, by the way, there was a huge, a 40-win gap between himself, Prost, who was second at the time on 51, and Schumacher on 91. 40 wins between them.
Yeah.
Like, that's unspeakable. Like, how on earth has that happened? It's happened again in the space of 15, 16 years. No, even less than that, 16, 17, 14 years. What? I mean, it is mad. It is absolutely mad. But one day, somebody will come along and beat those records that Lewis Hamilton is setting.
Yeah.
And then we could go, but it's just a case of when. It could be in the next 14 years. It could be in the next 20 years. It could be in the next 50 years. It may never happen again. Yeah. And that's why, as well, final point to me, this is why we've got to embrace it. We've got to take it in. We are witnessing something that we may never, ever see in a generation. We may never see this amount of wins, this amount of domination. Even it is boring. It is boring. I'll agree. Saying the only team win, it's boring. Exactly. Yeah. And it is boring. And you're like, oh yeah, Mercedes winning again. You want to see a competitive championship, but just embrace it, take it in, just witness it, because we will never see anything like this ever again in our lifetime, and maybe in our children's lifetime, in our grandchildren's lifetime. We don't know. We don't know what the future holds.
This could be it, Jordan. This could be it. We could be seeing the man who is climbing
This could be the peak of Formula One. No one could ever this could be it.
Of course, it could be 100 Grand Prix victories. He could get.
And sorry to put it again loud, but we are alive to see it. We've seen it. So when people are questioning us, going, you are so lucky to be around Lewis Hamilton. You're so lucky to watch Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
But at the time it was boring. How could it be boring? He's won this, he's won that, and then you go, yeah, true. I've seen that. I witnessed it.
I think sometimes as well, like Sebastian Vettel. The debate about Sebastian Vettel has gone on for a very long time about what's he going to do. When he was a Ferrari and deflated, he still is, but obviously he's going to Aston Martin now with a new start. Again, new fans will look at Sebastian and think he is a driver who spins and he's unlucky, but he's not very good. We all remember him for the 4 World Championships, and yes, I'm a Red Bull fan, but you cannot, in any circumstance, think that he got them as a fluke. He worked so hard for them. He deserved every win that he got. He deserved every World Championship he got. He was incredible. Absolutely. And you just remember the drivers for what they actually achieved. But as John said there, this could be the Everest. This could be the peak of Formula One. And just a yes or no, Jordan. If Jimmy wasn't there, have I, and has this episode convinced you that Lewis is going to take your number 1 spot as greatest of all time, in your opinion?
No.
No. For me, I could see it happening. I could really see it happening. But obviously, guys, let us know what you think in the comment section below. As I said at the start of this episode, it is very much a subjective opinion. It's your opinion. What do you think? Yes, of course, you have to have the people at the top there. The Ayrton Sennas, the Alain Prosts, the Jackie Stewarts, the Jim Clarks, the Michael Schumachers, and the Lewis Hamiltons, and the Sebastian Vettels. Out of all of them, and to be honest, out of everyone in Formula One, who is your favourite? Your favourite could be Robert Kubica. It could be someone who didn't achieve much in Formula One. It could be Pastor Maldonado. It could be Jordan. I don't know. It could be Eddie Jordan. So yes, let us know in the comment section below who your favourite, who your GOAT is, and what you think about Lewis Hamilton. And if whatever happens on Sochi, and if he gets to 91 and 92 and beyond, is he going to be the greatest of all time? Anyway, that is where we're going to end this episode. Thank you so much for watching. We had a bit of a break from Agree Disagree, but it's back next week ahead of the German Grand Prix, which you'll be happy to hear. That'll be out on Tuesday. Also, we posted a few days ago on Twitter and our social medias wanting your guys' opinions as well. So please go and head over to our social medias, mainly our Twitter, which is in the just below our 2 boxes here. You'll be able to go and find that. Go over to Twitter, give us a follow if you haven't already, and go and comment your opinion, your bold, your crazy opinions. It can be yours. We do shout out your YouTube channel as well if you want us to do as well. We give our agree or disagree and why. We love the series. It's been going on for 18 series now. It is a great one. Also, on Sunday, tomorrow at the Russian Grand Prix, we have Jordan's race reaction for the channel. That should be a good one. Then on Wednesday, we have F1 24/7 news and the preview and the race reaction to the German Grand Prix and the F1 debate show this time next week. It should be a good action-packed weekend, and we'll see if Lewis Hamilton is on 91. If you want to use the channel, please like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you'll be notified every time we upload. We have so much more content coming your way for the rest of the 2020 season. We've set a goal for 3,000 subscribers, so please help us out to get to that stage by the end of the season. We are tantalizingly close to that, about 200 subscribers away, so please help us. If we haven't hit 2,800 by then, please help us out. Also, you'll be doing this channel a great service, and us as well. We love growing with you guys. Also, we hope that you can stick around and enjoy our content for the rest of the season and beyond. Anyway, until that time comes, until next time, guys, stay safe, and we'll see you later.
See you later, guys.